Hello, and welcome back to another episode on math and science problems. Today, we'll be talking about how to find the area of a rectangle. Now, before we begin, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting and fun videos just like these. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about this video or previous videos, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section and I'll be sure to respond to you at my earliest convenience. Now, let's get started with the video. So, today we're going to be learning how to find the area of a rectangle. So, as we know, the area of a rectangle is can be complicated at times when trying to figure it out. However, the rectangle as a shape looks like this. It has two sides that are parallel to each other and another set of sides that are also parallel to each other. The first pair or the second pair doesn't necessarily matter. It's always longer than the second pair, and that's what makes a rectangle. A rectangle and then also the four corners. So that's somewhat of a general definition of a rectangle. Now, when we're looking to calculate the area of something, we're always looking at it from its two-dimensional side, meaning that we're always multiplying by a certain amount of things to figure out how much is within the area, meaning how much is inside all of this inside. So when we look at a square, the area of a square is equal to its side squared. Because since each side of a square is the same, we're multiplying the same side by itself. So that's the same thing as just squaring it. So if we take that same logic and apply that to a rectangle, we can do something called the area is equal to the length times the width. The length represents how long something is, and the width represents how far back it goes. Some people rearrange it. It doesn't necessarily matter because multiplication doesn't have a implicit effect to which order you multiply things in. Of course, if you have parentheses or certain numbers involved, that process can be a little bit more complicated, but in this case, whenever we're multiplying, it doesn't matter which one is the length times the width, which one is the length or the width, as long as we're doing length times the width. Awesome. So whenever we're trying to figure out the area of a rectangle, we're always doing the length times the width. So, for example, if I have a rectangle, and let's say its width is 3 and its length is 9, then I would, in order to figure out the area, I would be using this formula. So the length would be 9, and I'd be multiplying that by the width, and the width is 3. So after I do 9 times 3, I get 27. So the area of this rectangle is 27. However, another important key point to consider when you give your answers is the particular measurement or unit that is being given by the problem. So say for example, this problem is in inches, then my answer would be 27 inches squared. Now, remember a few moments ago how I noted that we're with a two-dimensional object? So whenever we're working with something in a certain dimension determines the unit that we write it in. So for example, the first dimension is essentially just distance between things. So if I were to tell you how far am I from the nearest convenience store, I would say, let's just say 20 feet. I'm 20 feet away from the nearest convenience store. This has no squared or cubic exponent because it's distance between two objects. Now, two dimensions is when we get into area. So if I were to tell you to calculate the area, I'm considering multiple avenues of a particular shape. So with one dimension, I'm writing up here in the top left corner, we have a straight line, and a two dimension, we have a box. Okay, so that is what makes something squared because we're considering two sides and we only have one side for one dimension, kind of plays into its role. So same if I were to ask what is the area of the rectangle for this, we got 27 inches squared. Now this can be inches squared, feet squared, yards squared. Whenever we're trying to find the area of something, we always square our measurement. Now for the third dimension. The third dimension is exactly what you may think when it comes to the logic so far. If we have one side for one dimension, two sides for two dimension, and three sides for three dimension. So if I have a cube, it's not about a cube. If I have a cube, I have three sides: the length, the width, just as the second dimension. But this time I have depth. So how far back something goes. So whenever we're looking at the third dimension, we're more so looking for the volume. So the volume is a keyword, which is something that we may go over later on this YouTube channel if you're interested. And the volume is very important when it comes to calculating certain three-dimensional shapes. So the third dimension shape of a rectangle would be a rectangular prism. Third dimension of a square would be a cube. The third dimension of a circle would be a sphere. The third dimension of a triangle would be a cone, and so forth. So whenever we're calculating the volume of a particular shape, that indicates more than two variables when trying to figure it out. That is when we enter the third dimension. So that is something that we will touch on later. But say, for example, a particular answer could be 100 centimeters cubed. The keynote I want you all to realize is that the exponent indicates the dimension, and that's kind of how that grows. So today we learned about the area of a rectangle and learning that the area of a rectangle is length times width. And then we also touched upon how the dimensions indicate the exponent, which overall arches in to the actual units when it comes to figuring out certain shapes. The areas of different shapes can also tie into different calculus concepts, such as related rates. And that's also something that we could touch in future videos. If you're interested, just feel free to comment down below. Thank you so much for tuning in on this video on math and science problems when it comes to the area of a circle. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more fun and informational videos just like these. As always, be sure to have a good day, night, or evening, and I will see you on the next video. Take care.